Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Joel Hunter here. This is a brief video to go over the syllabus for our course, Philosophy 101, the Introduction to Philosophy. What I recommend is that you go to the course canvas and download a copy of the syllabus for yourself, print it out, and then have it by your side while you look with me through the syllabus. And when I switch over to the screencast, then you can make some notes as we go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover things like the course objectives, the learning outcomes, what you should expect to get out of this class. We'll talk about the the assignments that are going to be graded, the grading criteria for those assignments, and we'll also then talk about additional policies that you need to know to do well in the course. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, is the reading schedule or the class schedule, where I'm going to go through the table at the very end of the syllabus that details all of your reading assignments as well as the due dates for your discussions and your quizzes. So everything that you need is already there in the syllabus. It's why it's such an important document. So you'll be referring to it frequently. So with no further ado, remember, this is your textbook. If you haven't got this yet, please get it as soon as possible. Time is running out for this. I want to emphasize again that you don't want to get behind. It's almost impossible to catch up if you do get behind. So go out and get the textbook, and then I'll see you in just a minute as we go through the syllabus. All right, hopefully you've got a copy of your syllabus printed out. It's available, of course, on Canvas, as I mentioned, and you can go through your own copy with me and make notes as you see fit. So the first thing to point out to you is that my email is at the very top, so you can reach me via Canvas. There's a way to do that if you go under People, but then you can also just email me directly at the email address there. So do feel free to use that. It's an online course, and so there isn't the sort of, ordinary connection that you have from face-to-face classes. But I like to treat the course that way, and so I want to make myself as available as I can to you. So do feel free to use email, and later on I'll talk about my email policy and what you can expect from that. The course description follows directly from the TMCC course catalog, so you would have seen something like that had you used that to sign up for the course. Then the introduction to the course is my own spin on that, and I give you some additional questions that I think are important in introducing a student to philosophy, and we'll be talking about those questions. So the only thing that I really want to point out in this section that you can certainly read on your own is this thing at the very end where I talk about what you should expect the level of engagement you should expect to be at to succeed in the course. So a minimum is that you would be checking in to Canvas about 4 times a week. And you would do that for four reasons. Number one, to get the week's announcement. There might be additional information, a video or something that I post, so you'll want to check on that. Second, you'll want to make your contribution to the online discussion, and I'm going to go into that in just a moment. And then lastly, or not lastly, but you'll also be taking a quiz online each week. And then you're also in the discussion, I should back up to that, you have not only an original contribution that you're making to the prompt that I give, but then you're also going to be responding at least once to another student's contribution. So there's 2 times there that you would probably need to be logging into Canvas. So Canvas tracks, your participation in the course. It's a fairly simple thing for me to see how engaged you are. So do be sure that you are keeping up with the course so that I can understand, how you're doing in the course. And if you're not engaged, then we can discuss the reasons for that. So I've already mentioned the required text and shown you that. So again, do be sure that you have it. The pagination that's at the end in the class schedule follows the pages in the 7th edition. So this is a brand new edition, and There's a 6th edition that's floating around still. If you have that, I don't think that you would be missing out on any of specific readings that I've assigned. I'm not absolutely sure about that because I haven't done a reading by reading comparison of them. But if you look through your copy and if you have the 6th edition and you look through the readings and you see, oh, wait a minute, I don't see that one, let me know, and we can work with that. The other thing that is going to be confusing for you is the pagination. So I give page numbers for these readings, and if you have an older edition, they won't match up. So you'll have to go by the titles in that case. Okay, so again, get the text ASAP. Then let's talk about the course objectives. And what we're trying to do is, again, this is an introductory course, so I'm not expecting you to come in with any philosophical knowledge, either about specific philosophers or the concepts that are used, or even the whole subject areas within philosophy. And so the point of the main objective is to introduce you to this material, and I break that down into 4 things that that we are aiming for in this, and that is you're going to show your ability to recognize a philosophical argument and to be able to analyze it. Then, based on that, you are going to be able then to construct and defend your own philosophical arguments. So point number 3 then, objective 3, is that you will acquire this knowledge that I spoke of about the specific philosophers, both historical as well as contemporary, their work, the kinds of arguments they give, the concepts they use, the issues that they address, the puzzles that they try to solve, those kinds of things. And then 4 is then the more generically, what are the main philosophical theories within the different subject areas? What are the concepts that are relevant to those theories, and what are the problems that they're trying to solve? Okay, next is the learning outcomes which follow from those objectives. So this is what you should be able to walk away from the course with in your belt, and that is the knowledge and understanding of these very things that I just talked about above in objectives 3 and 4. And the subject areas specifically that you're going to acquire this knowledge and demonstrate it to me is in ethics and metaphysics and epistemology. The second outcome that we're looking for is your ability to think critically. This kind of goes without saying in philosophy, and thinking critically doesn't mean necessarily being just skeptical for the sake of skepticism. What it is a motivated doubt, a motivated skepticism that is inquisitive. And that's kind of the key idea in critical thinking, is you are examining claims and concepts and ideas and arguments inquisitively. You're trying to understand what another philosopher is saying. Are they answering the question? Are they solving the problem? And then examining, what potential problems there might be with their arguments, their answers. So that's the analysis part of it, the analytical part of it. So you need to demonstrate those things. And then the third outcome, this is the third thing you should be able to walk away with, is a better ability to evaluate arguments within each of the areas of ethics and metaphysics and epistemology. So you'll have that knowledge of the areas, but then you also want to be able to go and walk away from the class knowing how to examine those arguments within those areas. Okay, so the graded assignments and policy and structure, let's talk about that. The core requirement in the class is reading. And so I have a whole separate video that hopefully you've seen or will see on that skill of close reading. It's aggressive reading, it's slow reading, it's active reading. And I go into that in more detail, but I want to emphasize that all the things that you're going to be actually graded on, that you're going to see in your grade book on Canvas, all of them are rooted in, are founded on the success you do of close reading. And so you won't do well on the quizzes and you won't do well on the discussions if you are not doing the kind of reading that will ensure your success, or at least enable your success in the course. So I can't emphasize that enough, and I try not to underemphasize it. So what you're going to have then are for the grade assignments that are built on that reading are two things: discussions, online discussions, and quizzes. And so those two types of assignments are each half of your grade. So that's it. I mean, that's all that is required from you. There's no essays per se. There's sort of short written assignments. That's your online discussion, but no additional assignments, no final exam, things like that. And then there's a note there about the due times and due dates, and I'll talk about that when we get to the class schedule at the end. Okay, so discussions. Now, what you'll want to do is check out my video on this subject where I go through the online discussions rubric in detail. So do have a look at that. Make sure that you grab that from Canvas, from the files, and print it out so that you know what the expectations are for your contributions to the online discussion. But basically, this is the brief overview here for the sake of the syllabus, and that is discussion. You're going to make 2 contributions each week. Contribution number 1 is going to be a response to a prompt that I've provided, and I put all the prompts up already for every week in the course. And so they're already available. And what you do is you give your answer, your thoughtful, considered answer to the prompt, and you will post that. And then later, after you've done that, you will then respond to one of your fellow students' contributions. And so those are the 2 things that you have to do. And I want to emphasize those are minimum, okay? That's enough to pass this requirement. But it doesn't necessarily ensure that you're going to get an A if you just do the 2 things. You have to do them well, obviously, but you can also help yourself if you show a level of engagement beyond the minimum. And so I'll talk about that in the actual online discussions video. Okay, so there's 6 discussions, and each is worth 8% of your grade. Now, I have decided, even though I have 6 discussions and we only have 5 weeks, is I've broken out the 6th one into a separate extra credit category. And so don't actually go by that 8% number. It's 10%, because what I've done is I've taken the 6th one and made it an optional one. So you don't have to do the 6th one, but if you do, it will help your grade. Okay? Well, if you do well, it'll help your grade. Okay, next is the quizzes. And so this is the other graded component of the course. There are, again, 6 quizzes, and you take them 1 a week. And just like with the online discussion, I've taken the 6th one and I've made it an extra credit. So again, each quiz is not worth 8%, but 10% of your final grade. So I really wanted you to read that last section, on the existentialism section, part 6 in your text. But I really could not justify making it required because of the amount of reading that you already had to do. So what I decided to do after I completed the syllabus is to break out that part of the course into an extra credit part. So those of you who want to pursue that and go for the extra credit, I always get questions from students about, hey, can I get some extra credit? Well, yes, you can, and I've already built it in. So we'll talk about that on the schedule, which I did actually update. Okay, so there is your quizzes, and I have a separate video for the quizzes to show you what those are like, but I give you a basic discussion there. Okay, and then the grade structure, pretty straightforward. You're used to that. A, B, C, D, F, and the corresponding quantitative values. And so what Canvas does in the gradebook, of course, is it takes any kind of letter grade that I might post and makes it into a number. So you will always have a number to see how you did on a particular assignment, as well as, you know, what your cumulative score is up to that point in the course. Okay, other course policies and information. So attendance, I mentioned this at the beginning, and I emphasize it again, is engagement. Engagement shows that you are taking the class seriously, even though it's an online class and it's at your own, so much depends on your own motivation and your own scheduling and your own priorities. You still have to demonstrate that engagement. And so I recommend a minimum of 4 times a week that you are checking in online, and Canvas, as I mentioned, records that. So you want to check for those new announcements. Then one additional item here in attendance is that you make sure that your Canvas notifications are set so that you get automatic emails or Twitter messages or text messages anytime I post something to our course. And so there might be an announcement, it might be a new discussion, whatever. But I recommend that you check your notifications and that you are getting updates about things that are happening in the class. Okay, late work, there's a discussion there, and the basic thing is, this is a 5-week class and it's online, and the idea is that you by choosing an online course, you are basically saying that, hey, I got my stuff together. I can manage my time efficiently and well. I can do what is required for the course, and I can get stuff done on time. So late work just isn't accepted because I've laid every assignment out in advance, and all of it is available to take at any time except for the quizzes. I do roll those out each week. Those drip out, but everything else, you can complete way ahead of time, at least a week ahead of time. So that means that there's really no room for late work, so technology failures or taking trips or, something that comes up. If you have your stuff together, then you will still be able to complete things in a timely fashion. That's what I expect. The email policy. This is one of the little bonus things that you get in my class, and that is if you aren't familiar with how to email professionally, and this, by the way, is a huge help for you if you go into a job that requires this kind of communication. You got to know how to transition from colloquial communication like you do with your friends to doing it with fellow workers and professionals. And so what I've done is given you a template here for how to do that. And what you need to know about my availability is that I will always check the email quickly. I get pretty much instant notification when email rolls in, but I'm not able, and just out of consideration, really, I do not respond immediately, but I do respond as quickly as I possibly can. One exception to that is on the evenings and weekends. Now, I'll read it, but I can't promise you a response until the weekday, all right, the next weekday. So that would usually be Monday. And so if you send something in on an evening, don't expect anything in the same evening, but, I'll have it read by the next morning, and we'll try to respond on that next day. On the weekends or holidays, again, it's just not something that I'm going to respond to at the moment. It'll wait till the first, business day, essentially. So I will respond to you quickly, but just be aware of that expectation. So now moving on then to the email template, I give you some tips on how to do that. And so you can read that at your leisure, and please do implement it though when you're communicating with me and with your other professors, and anytime that you're in the business world, you'll find this a really helpful tool. So academic integrity, obviously it goes without saying, and the only time this might come up is in plagiarism, that is, would be if you're copying and pasting something from the internet for your online discussion. And it's a fairly easy thing to see for an instructor who's been at this as long as I have. So just don't do it. It would be sad. It would be sad, and I as a matter of honor and ethics, I have to submit those for disciplinary action, so just avoid it. Then if you have any special needs, any documented disabilities, make sure that you go to the Disability Resource Center, contact them to get the paperwork that you need, and then they reach out to all your instructors and coordinate with us about accommodations. So some of you will get maybe some extra time on the quiz or an assignment. So it could be other things too for an online course. But if you do have a documented disability, be sure to pursue that, and so that your accommodations can be satisfied. And then let's see if there's anything else. Nothing else that we need to go over there. So last thing I want to cover, and this is the important part, is the class schedule. What am I saying? This is the important part. It's all important, of course, but this is the part now that that we can spend a little time on going over. And what I'm going to do is provide videos for you for each of the weeks, and give you an overview of the content, some slides that I'll make available to you, just to help you focus in on some parts of the readings, because the readings are pretty substantial. Let me just mention something about week 1, which is coming up. The reading that I gave you, that's a PDF. Of course, this is something that you get from the files, and I will provide the link in the announcement for this week. And that's the Vallicella article. And I'm going to go over with you a feature that is at the very end of that I added myself, to give you a little demonstration about how you do a close reading with this particular article. Now you'll notice in the next reading, Russell, The Value of Philosophy, that this is a little feel-good essay to give you some idea of why this course is worth your time, and why working through our sometimes difficult readings is valuable in itself. And one thing to note here is that Vallicella actually pulls a quote from this part of Russell's book, Problems in Philosophy, and he uses that as one of about a dozen different definitions of philosophy, and he gives a take on each of those. That's what is in that reading. So the Russell one appears twice. You get it in the actual textbook, and then you get it in Vallicella's post. Then backing up here, you have a reading on the logical toolkit, which is important for understanding the basics of argumentation, and then an introduction, which is really super helpful. And I'm going to go into a particular part of this introduction that is super helpful in the close reading video, because that's what's going on. He gives a wonderful, wonderful demonstration of that, and I want to commend that to your attention, and we'll go through that in actual detail in the other introductory video. Okay, so in the block here for the week, you'll notice that I've given due dates for your first discussion and for your first quiz. So those are going to be, now I don't know why I have 2 parentheses there, I have a little typo, but those are, because it's the first week, and you haven't had a full week, at least a week to prepare, these are going to appear at strike that. I'm babbling now because it's week 5 that's the weird week, because that's the end of the course. Never mind what I was just saying. The due dates are the due dates. That's when they are due. So the discussion 1, what that means is that your original contribution is due on June 2nd by 11:55 p.m. All the times are 11:55 p.m. That's up in the earlier part of the syllabus. And your quiz 1 then is due on June 4th at 11:55 p.m. No later than. You can of course do these earlier, and why not? Because you can. Okay, so this is the first week, and it's a gentle introduction to the course. I don't want to overwhelm you in the very first week, but once we get through that first week, then it's pedal to the metal, folks. Part 2 is God and Evil. One of the classic philosophical questions. It has to do with the divine, the realm of the divine, which is a metaphysical question about reality. And so there are some classic readings there, Anselm Aquinas and Descartes, and then some newer readings, McCord Adams and Sutherland, specifically taking on the problem of evil in this area. It's a classic problem for it. It's called theodicy. So again, discussions and quizzes, due dates are there. Then third part is week 3 is knowledge and reality. So it's epistemology, which is then the study of knowledge. Reality is metaphysics. That has to do with the nature of truth, the nature of reality, and so on. So you have readings on those 2 topics. It's a big, big area that is severely condensed for the sake of our scope of our course. We can only do so much in this, but I've tried to give you some classic readings here, and these are all classic readings. One of them I have provided independently of the text, and that's this Barclay reading, The Limits of Scientific Explanation, and that's available in the PDF. Okay, next topic, minds, bodies, and persons. Very, very active area in contemporary philosophy. And this is 4th week, and these are, this is probably some of the most difficult topic, at least, one of the most difficult topics to do, but I think the readings are very, very accessible. I've tried to select them to be so. And what you have are these 4 readings here work together, or is that 5? That's 5 readings. Those go together on the subject of the philosophy of mind. And one of the one of the popular, let's put it that way, one of the popular views in philosophy of mind of the last 20 years or so is this idea of eliminative materialism. So that's a metaphysical thesis, but it particularly pertains to the question of what is a mind, and the argument here between the sides of this is one of the more interesting ones, I think. It's a really good example of how strong philosophical argumentation can be. And so one of the readings is the Vallicella. Again, it's a PDF. There's 2 of them that I've packed in there for you to supplement the readings in your text. Then the other part of that week then has to do with the nature of persons. And so the Van Inwagen and the Frankfurt are discussing personhood. All right, then week 5, and this is the last official week of the course, is on ethics and society. And so you have some classic 2 readings here, classic readings on utilitarianism or consequentialism, and a reading by Kant on his ethical theory, which is called deontological, has to do with duty. And then lastly, I put this at the end, as does your text, reading from Aristotle, the Nicomachean Ethics, which is commonly called virtue ethics. The emphasis is on the development of character and virtue, traits of virtue. Okay, so that is the end of the course officially, but looky, we have the extra credit section on existentialism. And so notice that I have here, this is available at any time during the semester. So you can do the readings at your leisure. You can, sprinkle it in to the other week's readings. You can complete the discussion at any time and the quiz at any time. You can do it early, but I make the due dates the same as the week 5, just because it's the very end of the course. So these are really great readings and a really exciting part of the course that really most philosophy departments will have at least one course that is dedicated to studying existentialism. So it's an example of, I think it's worth having an introductory look at it, but because of the amount of readings I've already given you, I'm not requiring it. It's entirely optional. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we have then, let me see if I can pop out of this. No, I didn't want the draw tool. Okay, well, I'm going to sign off then, and I'll see you for our next video, and I'll see you in actually week 1 as we get into the, what did I just do? I think I did something crazy. Okay, well, be that as it may, I will see you in our first week's readings on introduction to philosophy, studying the value of philosophy and what it is and what we're going to be doing for this semester. All right, gang. I'll see you later. Take care.